Welcome one and all to another segment of Legends of Evil, where I talk about the villains outside of the comic books. And this time around, I'm going to be talking about my first ever Scooby-Doo villain. This is the first time I'm going to be talking about a Scooby-Doo villain. Now, the reason why I don't really talk a lot about Scooby-Doo villains is because they're kind of one and done. Even the movies, they're kind of one and done. There's no real recurring villain, and if they do, it's kind of campy, really, in its own way. They're all just kind of like, "Ooh, next time I'll get you." It's kind of like, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those crazy kids and that dumb dog. So there hasn't really been a villain there's not really been a rogues gallery for Scooby-Doo. Really, there hasn't. Although you could count Franken-Creepy, where they brought a lot of the villains back to do this elaborate scheme when even Velma says that's fucking dumb. But anyway, I digress. Because there's one villain in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated that was unlike any villain I have seen in Scooby-Doo, and probably one of the most dangerous creatures, one of the most dangerous villains I've ever seen in any show in cartoons ever. I'm speaking, of course, of Professor Pericles. Now, you can see from this image that you're like, really? A fucking parrot? That's the big villain here? That is the big end-all, be-all villain for Scooby-Doo? Well, never has Scooby-Doo in any series outside of Mystery Incorporated has a villain ever had a body count. I'm serious, guys. This guy killed tons of people in his wake. He slaughtered people. He actually killed people, and he lets you know he killed people. So let's dive into this little bird mind. He's basically, the best way I can describe Professor Pericles is if you put the Red Skull's brain in Iago. That is the best way to describe Professor Pericles. It also is interesting because the voice actor, Udo Kier, is a very well-known German actor. Most of you guys would probably know him if you've ever seen the movie Iron Sky, the Space Nazi movie. He's also done tons of films, mostly a lot of German horror films. I haven't seen a lot of his filmography, but from what I've seen, he's kind of like the German equivalent of like Vincent Price or Christopher Lee, where he's done a lot of horror films. But I know he's done some other stuff here and there. And again, I could be totally wrong. I haven't seen a lot of his filmography. But yeah, just talking about Udo Kier, the voice actor for Professor Pericles, he gives this kind of slow, menacing tone to him, and he brings in that heavy German accent, and yeah, Professor Pericles is a fucking Nazi. As a parrot. If the Red Skull ever needed a pet, it would be Professor Pericles. So Professor Pericles has an interesting backstory. That being that he was a parrot, an incredibly intelligent parrot, who had he was a mascot for the original Mystery Inc. He was the original, in this continuity of Mystery Incorporated, there was another Mystery Inc., but they disappeared, and Professor Pericles was on that group. But, however, when they disappeared, what had happened was, Fred's quote-unquote dad turns out not to be his real dad, but the guy who adopted him, he collaborated with Professor Pericles in the hopes of getting this gold that they were searching for, to discredit them. So he made them leave, and then he turned on Professor Pericles and locked him up. And Pericles kind of sat in prison for a good number of years until he found a way to escape. And keep in mind, he was kept in Crystal Cove in a supermax prison, like something you would keep, I don't know, the Hulk in. And this guy was so intelligent, he could literally, without even getting out of the cell, duct tape a cop's stun gun to his hand and shock him with it. Yeah, he was that good. From then on, Professor Pericles manipulated Mystery Incorporated into doing his bidding. He had this huge plan that even, you would say this is Toffee before Toffee. Toffee would have to look at this guy and go, I'm going to take notes real quick. Just give me a minute. Because for the 2 seasons he was around, this motherfucker made a plan that was the end game was to unleash a Cthulhu god being. I'm not even joking. His end game was to and he did it. He actually did it. He actually managed to merge with he actually merged with this Cthulhu godlike being, only known as the evil entity. Although it is kind of mentioned that its name is Nibiru. So, yeah, he merged with the evil entity and tried to wipe out humanity. He nearly succeeded, had it not been for Mystery Incorporated defeating him and restarting in a new timeline. So they literally flashpoint the whole thing. Yeah. But Professor Pericles had that was his end game. But to do that, he had to work with several members of the original Mystery Inc. Fred's parents, who were the original, like, Daphne and Fred, I almost said Daffy, Daphne and Fred, they were very vain and cruel and very greedy. So, yeah, rather than reunite with their son, they're like, hey, let's get rich and be youthful forever. Then you had Mr. E, who turned out to be, like, I can't remember their names. They're like, escaping me, but the original, like, from their versions, Shaggy, who saved Mr. E's life. I mean, not Mr. E's life, Professor Pericles' life, and he took on the identity of Mr. E, and was helping Pericles manipulate our Mystery Inc. and he tried to back out and kill Pericles until he decided, nope, you're not going to do that. In fact, while you were sleeping, I injected little cobra venom into your spine, so whenever I press this button, it injects cobra venom into your back. How maniacal is that? He also murdered several members of Crystal Cove, and this guy was brutal. Pericles was just brutal. He was cunning. He was a master of his art. He even had an army of Nazi robots. Yep. Nazi robots. Even unleashing a giant army of giant bugs that basically killed Scooby-Doo's love in this series, Nova. Yeah. So make no mistake, whenever someone says, oh, what's the scariest villain in Scooby-Doo? They've never really had a rogues gallery. To which I respond with, let me introduce you to Professor Pericles. Let me introduce you. Because he, like I said, dangerous, cunning, ruthless, and 10 steps ahead of everybody. And in fact, it was only sheer luck that Mystery Inc. managed to defeat him in the end. He nearly won. Like, it took, like, MacGuffin to beat him. So, yeah. Anyway, so there's just a little bit of Professor Pericles. So, there you go, guys. Like I said, if the Red Skull was ever in the shop for looking for pets, he'd probably get Professor Pericles. So there you go, guys. So once again, hope you all enjoyed this. This is my, like I said, first time talking about a Scooby-Doo villain. And who better to talk about than this guy? But anyway, just comment below, let me know. What did you guys think of Professor Pericles in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated? Did you guys like him? Did you guys hate him? Like I said, just comment below, let me know. And once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I will see you guys later.